BRB UK.
Worse teeth, better accents.
Hello, and indeed, ahoy hoy, welcome one and all to BRB UK episode 570. I'm Dan, and in our long, oft-continuing theme of quite a few episodes, there's only two of us again this week. The person tapping out is Coleman. He is off enjoying Christmas festivities with friends. Boo. Me and Tim. Hello, Tim.
I've noticed, like, he's not here and I wasn't here last week. And, you know, I could say that I was busy at work. We could say that he's having an office party, even though that's deeply suspicious considering he works in a petrol station. And they don't even have an office. So that can't be true.
Well, I heard that nice girl Belinda from accounts was helping him out with a prostate exam. That's all I heard.
I don't know about those rumours, but I know it's probably good. Even though I did speak to him last night, I'm generally not talking to him at the moment because I'm angry with him, Dan. Angry,
why are you
I
angry?
tell you.
Why are you angry? Why are you angry? Why are you miffed? Why are you miffed?
He bought a PSVR 2 and didn't tell me for 2 months.
Well, that's because he doesn't want you to speak to him about it for 15 hours a day. To be honest, Tim, I know you're annoyed at him. I know you're annoyed at him, but the guy's got a point.
I mean, it's probably fair. But
he's got a point.
Literally, we finished recording the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I can't remember. I said something about, you should pop around and play some video games. We can play some VR or something, blah, blah, blah. And he went, I could just do that here, and then started waving, like, I was going to say motion controllers, but I keep on forgetting what they're called. They're not pulse controllers. Anyway, the controllers from the PSVR 2 started waving them around. I was like, why have you got them? And he was like, because I got a PSVR 2. I was like, what?
Maybe he didn't just want Tim's questionable face jam on his eyeballs. It's probably what he didn't want. He was like, no, I've experienced Tim's facial funk before. I don't want any more of that. Thank you very much. I mean, and also, so he's got a point. One, your questionable facial hygiene. Yeah. Two, you will talk people to death as soon as you find out that you share a VR headset. And well, I'm sure there's a third perfectly valid reason, but yes. Oh, God, I've actually just seen the agenda. You've got a PSVR 2 roundup, haven't you? That's probably why I think about it.
To be fair, I haven't actually played much else this week. I've been pretty busy at work, which is why I was missing from last week's show. That will probably continue for a little while. But it is an exciting time.
Why is it an exciting time, Tim?
PSVR 2 at the moment. Because there's a spate of really good games coming out in December. I've also got to very quickly try some other games. I will generally save my proper thoughts and impressions because Kev and I need to get together and do another VRB before Christmas, as he's got quite a lot of VR stuff to talk about as well. And so I will generally confine it to that. But just because I don't have much else to talk about. Also, very stupidly possibly, but the game that I put the most time into this week, and it was just, I didn't know that my time would be quite so limited after I played this for a bit. But the game I put most of my time into this week is a VR game I can't talk about till next year. But one I'm quite excited by.
Thanks for that, Tim.
It's a good one. I like it.
Right,
again, I'll come back to that in 2024.
Wow, that was a great bit of news, Tim. Thank you. That was brilliant. That was a great use of everybody's time, especially mine.
I did get to try a little bit of Racket Fury Table Tennis VR, which recently came out on PSVR 2. It was criticised slightly when it came out because it didn't have an upgrade path for anyone that bought it on PSVR 1, although I didn't buy it on PSVR 1 because I wasn't that angry about that. But the price was $24.99, which was even more than it was on PSVR 1. They subsequently dropped the price in a sale after it got gathered some criticism for both of those things. And it's currently £8.24, which...
Wow, that's pretty good.
Quite frankly, feels a bit light. I was like, would you all round it up to a tenner, chaps? Like, I feel like, you need some money now. But the physics and that are really good.
They're quite proud of their physics, aren't they? I haven't seen the blurb for the game. They're like, we spend countless hours on ping pong physics. You're like, well, good for you. I guess good job you're making a ping pong game. Yeah, otherwise, that's a really niche hobby. Because this came out on the on MetaQuest as well, didn't it?
Yeah, I think
pains
it's out
me to call that.
Yeah, it's still out on a few VR platforms, I think. I'm not sure if it's on PC. I imagine it might be as well. But yeah, you're basically playing table tennis, Whiff Waff, if you want to be a posh English tit about it. But
I don't want to talk about that, man.
But you're playing against a selection of robots. The one thing I say is you've got to kind of play through the same robots again and again to kind of get amass enough points to then unlock the next sort of level and stuff like that. But there's various different opponents at each level, so you can kind of mix it up a bit. There was one thing where I absolutely got trounced in my first game and then was like, okay, this may be a bit harder. But then
ping pong robots will do that. They're vicious.
Will do that to you. But then it seemed to be like fairly easy to pick up because second game I absolutely trounced the opponent. And then kind of, I've progressed to harder opponents and it's got a bit more tricky. But yeah, that just seems really good. It just seems, as I said, for the £8.24 it's currently on sale. And that's partly why I'm also mentioning it top of the list at the moment. While it's on sale, it's definitely worth picking up. Once it goes back up to $24.99, that's a bit of a harder recommendation. But at the current price, it's definitely worth recommending, basically. So if you can get it for that sort of price, I'd pick that up. That's good fun. I haven't tried the online and see how that works, but from what I've heard from other people, that seems to work reasonably well. And the single player is decent fun. So yeah, I'd pick that up while that's on sale. I also got to play a quick bit of Ghost Signal, a Stellaris game, which is it's an odd game to describe. It's a roguelike. You've got like a little spaceship that is kind of flying around space.
Spaceships do that, Tim. FYI.
They do that, yes. But kind of, independently of you. It's not something you're directly in control of. You're not flying it. But you do get to kind of plot its path around the environment. So you can go, go here and then go here. And you only get to do like 2 steps at once. But it can be flying around while you're then selecting targets and shooting the targets that are attacking your ship. And you pick up various different upgrades and stuff as you go. And then once you finish a run, there's some permanent upgrades you can unlock and stuff like that as well. I haven't got too deep into it, but I picked it up while it was on sale because I'd heard other PSVR reviewers talking about it in high regards. And it seems like it's a good quality game. I'll have to get a bit deeper into it to kind of properly assess it. But from the little bit I've seen so far, it seems quite good fun. And I'd heard good things. And again, it's on sale, so pick it up while it's on sale, possibly.
So, I mean, because Stellaris is kind of like this grand scale kind of sci-fi strategy game, isn't it, at its core? So it's a bit of a... I'm aware, again, like you, I'm aware of Stellaris. Yeah. I haven't necessarily sunk much time into it. But, but this just sounds that I'm kind of trying to, from what you said, trying to work out where the game is here. So you are, pilot? You're like the captain of a ship, and you're saying, right, this is the route the ship should take. So,
kind of, but it's all kind of action is going on, and it's on the fly. It's not like turn based or anything.
Okay.
So you are like having to actively move it around the environment to stop ships ramming into it or shooting it. And missiles being fired at you and stuff like that. And you have to select the targets to like shoot the missiles out the sky, shoot the ships that are trying to ram you. And then you kind of got different weapon systems that you can flick between that are better at dealing with shields or just health bars and stuff like that. So yeah, like I said, I've only just scratched the surface on that one, but that does seem like there's one that's going to warrant a bit more time investment and will be good when I do, basically. Okay. Also out this week was big one that is getting the kind of ratings that I was kind of expecting of it, but it's one it's held in high regard for its presentation as much as its gameplay, and the basic gameplay loop seems pretty good. It's one called Arizona Sunshine 2. It's based on Arizona Sunshine. A lot of people went mad for that. I didn't actually get into Arizona Sunshine too much. I could appreciate it on PSVR 1 for what it was, but I didn't love it. I just found the tracking was a bit off and stuff like that. It just seemed a bit not great.
So kind of at its core then, is it like kind of an on-rail shooter but in VR or?
No, it's entirely, free-form, walking around, first-person shooter. But yeah, they actually made another game in between this called After the Fall, and I've actually played a bit more of that recently because I've played that online with friends. And that's got like a good like online co-op mode, and it's more kind of, that game is designed around co-op more than playing it single player. Whereas Arizona Sunshine has co-op in it now, Arizona Sunshine 2 does rather, and has a horde mode like the first game does, but it's more designed around a story-based, although the story seems to be something that isn't massively prevalent in the whole thing, and that's one thing that's getting a bit criticized, that the story does take a bit of a backseat. But it seems like the general gunplay and minute-to-minute gameplay is pretty good and fun, and you're kind of hacking your way through zombies. There's some melee where you are like hacking zombies' heads off and stuff like that, but apparently the melee weapons break reasonably quickly, and it's more about kind of weaponry. You've also got a dog as well.
Of course you do. Is it a normal dog or a zombie dog?
It's a non-zombie dog, although I don't know that will necessarily remain the case.
Oh, it's not going to go all old Yeller, is it?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Can't be doing that.
There's definitely a bit that I've seen in trailers where your dog is injured and you are attending to it medically. But generally, it seems like it's something that can like help you out in combat, and then you can send him to go and deal with a zombie, and you don't really have to worry about like blowing him up with a hand grenade or anything. He does seem invincible and those things.
He's Wellard, the dog. Is it Wellard?
Yeah, but in story fashion and stuff, then there's some concern there, and I think that's where some of the story elements may come into it. But that's what I'm really looking forward to. It's been getting, between 7 and 8 from most reviewers that I've seen, but that's kind of what I was expecting from it. But it does look very graphically impressive. Has been out for a couple of days now, but I was out last night and I was out the night before, so I haven't had a chance to play it. But that's what I'm looking really forward to jumping into. Likewise, and this is another reason why it's a good time to be a PSVR 2 game at the moment, Resident Evil 4 is out tomorrow. Oh, yeah. Or the VR mode for that is out tomorrow. I have purchased myself a physical copy ahead of release so that I can install that this evening at some point and play that over the weekend. But it means I'll be doing lots of zombie killing. Although, are they officially zombies?
Doing lots of shrieking like a manly man is what
I haven't actually
played.
Yeah, I haven't actually played Resident Evil 4 before, so this will be the first time going through the game.
Oh, haven't you?
No. And I know it's held in really high regard, not just in general, but throughout, by Resident Evil fans. A lot of people hold this as the best. It's one I've never played at all before, so I'm really looking forward to experiencing it the first time in VR. I think the game director actually said that he was really jealous of anyone that got to experience the game first time in VR. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, I suppose Connolly's because what system? Because that came out on PS3, didn't it? I think Resi 4 first time around.
Didn't it come out on GameCube? Am I misremembering that, or?
Because kind of what I was thinking is like kind of those slightly older games are actually a really good shoe-in for VR because the assets are actually by modern standards relatively low poly. It's not throwing that many textures about.
Well,
so actually
but don't forget they updated the game earlier this year.
Yeah, that's true.
And
that's true.
It's the updated version of the game that's just getting a VR mode. But that came out and got 10s across the board, basically. Like most reviewers earlier this year gave that 10 out of 10, and a lot of people are putting in the conversation in game of the year in a year where we've had some really strong contenders for that. So again, really looking forward to that. One other game that I was really looking forward to is Vertigo 2. It was due to come out on the 12th, so next Tuesday. That has unfortunately just been announced that they have delayed that game.
No, because it's been out on PC for a while, though.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm not sure
since the summer, I think.
if or when it came to meta, but it's definitely been on PC for a bit. But it's held in very high regard. It's a big, long form kind of first-person shooter that seems to go some interesting places with some aliens and alien environments and things. And yeah, that was one I was really looking forward to. Probably my most anticipated VR game coming out this year, at least. And yeah, so it's a shame that it's been delayed. It sounds like it was some sort of game-breaking bug that has pushed it back. It will hopefully still be out this year, but we haven't really heard what's going on with that yet. So I'm waiting with bated breath. But it does give me a bit more room to play, a few more days to play Arizona Sunshine and Resident Evil 4.
Nice.
So I am not entirely upset about
Brain
its
those
delay,
zombies.
So
Brain those zombies. So Vertigo 2's like, I've heard people say it's kind of like almost like an indie version of what kind of Half-Life Alyx goes for. It's kind of, although it is largely a shooter, there are puzzly elements to it. It's quite a nice.
Yeah, it seems to be a mixture of first-person shooters and environmental puzzles and stuff like that. But yeah, it's really, really highly regarded and also very interestingly made by a single developer, like one person.
Yeah,
I don't know if he had help with music and other bits, but and also coming out at the same time as this is supposed to be an expansion to the original game. And I don't know if that's already out or is coming out on the 12th and may not be delayed, but the expansion includes some extra characters that you can play through as once you've... I don't know if you have to complete the game or there's different options to start with. I think it's once you've completed the game on your second run through, you can choose some different characters. And they've just added some other bits and bobs as well. But yeah, as I said, really looking forward to that one. Not massively upset it's delayed. I'd rather it was delayed than came out broken because that's been a bit of a problem with PSVR 2 of late. So I'd rather that was the case. But yeah, it's still a really good time to be a PSVR 2 gamer. There was also an Upload VR thing last night where there was a load of other games announced. Most of them were MetaQuest things, and as a consequence, didn't look graphically impressive for the PS2. But we'll see if we get other versions of that announced in the future. Also, I don't know. It seems like, and we should probably have said this up front, but just saying the Game Awards are tonight and are going to happen after we're recording this podcast, but before this podcast comes out. So this podcast will be instantly out of date the time it comes out. So thanks
just
for that,
the
Game
way
Awards.
we like it.
Yeah. So
immediately irrelevant. That's what we are.
But I think all the main nominees. I think there was one other one that was in there, and I don't think it was Vertigo 2, which was a bit shenanigan-y. But there was one other thing that's been put into there that's not exclusive to PSVR 2, but all the other entries in the Game Awards for VR Game of the Year are PSVR 2 games.
Okay.
So that's come hand in hand with some rumors that we might also get some announcement of PSVR 2 stuff. I'm kind of trying to not get my hopes up too much. but yeah, that might be a possibility, but we'll see on that one.
Well, obviously we're going to be reporting back a little bit on the Game Awards next week, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I know there's been some controversy around, when's an indie game not an indie game? Is Dave the Diver an indie game because it's kind of cutesy and pixel art and a small team? But does it mean but it's published by a very large company, essentially? Yeah. Does that mean it's not an indie game? So I think, there's... as with all of these things, there's always kind of unexpected headlines that get generated. But it's been a corking year for games this year, and I think we're going to see a lot of really great things. I'm just sad I haven't had time to play more of them, to be honest with you.
Also, just while I remember, and because it'll please Mr. Coleman while he's editing. A thank you to Mr. Coleman, but also passing on the message to our listeners and viewers. Coleman reminded me of something which has meant that I could afford all these games at the moment as well, basically.
Yeah, right. Unless he gave you a large amount of money, Tim, your ability to afford these things hasn't changed. It's the fact that you spent the money. All right, you still might not be able to afford it.
Two things. His recommendation of the game collection has been good, and I had a load of points saved up in that system so that I could buy Resident Evil 4. So that was good. But he also reminded me about PlayStation Stars, which I'd completely forgotten about, other than it has a collection of little bits and bobs. But I had 40 quid's worth of vouchers pretty much saved up in that as well. So I literally got Arizona Sunshine for half price, and I've still got 20 quid towards Vertigo 2 when that comes out as well. So
Job's a good one.
Yeah, so that was really handy at this time of year as well. So thanks for the reminder on that, Mr. Coleman. But also reminding other people to actually go and check their PlayStation Stars account, because I think those points run out, and I don't know if there's a calendar year to that or just a time period, but just make sure you cash them in. You can cash them in for actual games, but you can also cash them in for just money off vouchers that go on your PlayStation account. So just even if there isn't a game in their collection that you want to trade it in for directly, just make sure to trade in your points, and you can get some money off whatever you're buying on PlayStation Network, which is pretty good.
Excellent. I'm just putting a reminder to myself in the agenda. So there we go. So that is what Tim has done. Very PlayStation focused. I haven't really got too much more. I need to do one correction on myself from last week. Because last week I was unsure, I tell you, whether or not SteamWorld Build was just on the PC flavor of Game Pass, or whether it was also available on the console. It is also available on the console, which makes perfect sense. Yeah. Because it's got really great controller support, really well thought out. So
that's a game I need to carve out some time for as well.
It's a nice, pleasant bit of whimsy. It's a relaxing city building management game. I still find myself getting a bit overwhelmed by these things. You know, perhaps my kind of guilt complex about, oh my God, I should be doing something else. Always gets me. But yeah, corking game, check it out. So you can do so with Merry and Free Abandon if you're on an Xbox as well. It's not just PC that it's on. And other than that, I've just been kind of continuing to tinker with my massive shiny dick.
How is your OLEDs?
My OLEDs is as I said last week, it's very good. There were some gremlins that I encountered specifically with Wi-Fi.
At Christmas
which,
as well.
Pro tip, turn 160 hertz bit of your Wi-Fi router off.
Don't feed them after midnight.
No, don't do that. But I developed a squeaky trigger, Tim. I checked to get in straight away. I double-checked it wasn't me being an old bugger and having arthritis.
I was going to say, you could see a doctor about that, Dan.
Yeah, exactly. I had a squeaky trigger.
I don't know if you can see yourself.
So, but it was quite like, it was like kind of like a squeaky spring. It was like going whenever I pressed the left trigger, which bit annoying, not going to lie. So I had to pop the old back off it. I popped the old back off it, reseated the spring, and it's done.
Oh.
So I had a little look inside. Be careful when you open it, because the plastic they've made the shell out of is very soft, and despite the fact I used a super flexible guitar pick, I still put a little gouge. I put a little gouge in my seam, Tim. No one wants a little gouge in their seam.
No one wants a gouge in their seam.
But it's probably, to be fair, it's probably only I can see it. You know what it's like when you get a new gadget. The first scratch on a new gadget is the worst scratch. But yeah, still loving it. Great system. By no means a necessary upgrade, but a nice upgrade if you feel like it. So yeah, well done.
Is it noticeably better in other ways than the screen? Like, is the battery life made a difference? And
the battery life, in my experience, is depending on the game, between about 30 and 50% longer.
Ooh,
so although they only up the capacity by 20%, the processor's more efficient, both in terms of the energy it uses and its thermal envelope, which means actually it runs a bit cooler and slightly faster. Not noticeably, we're talking like maybe 1 or 2 frames a second faster.
But that's doubly impressive considering it's a bigger screen as well, right?
Well, no, the screen's still the same res, so it's not a higher resolution screen. It's just the area of the screen is bigger.
Yeah.
And obviously it uses OLED technology, which is more power efficient than LCD.
I didn't realize that was an advantage of OLED as well. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when a pixel's black, it's off. So therefore, you're not spending energy to light that pixel.
That makes sense.
So that basically that and also OLED screens are thinner, which gave them more room to put a bigger battery in. So all these little bits kind of add up with it. I mean, the Steam Deck's still a corking system. It's a great little thing. I mean, if for everything from like making PC games really accessible, I think it's done a great job in making developers think about, gone are the days where it was acceptable for a lot of PC games to have Byzantine interfaces with 30 million key combos that you need to remember. It really has helped streamline, kind of a controller-first PC experience. I mean, you can still obviously plug in a Bluetooth keyboard and do stuff that way. Slightly defeats the point of it being portable, of course, if you do that. But obviously, you can still
keyboard on one hand,
yeah, you can.
OLED Steam Deck in the other.
But I mean, it's a really great little system. And the OLED just kind of perhaps gives it a little bit more of a spring in its step. The 1 terabyte model is one I've gone for is really great. Having that extra storage is nice, but of course you can still whack in an SD card. An SD card performance is actually pretty good. So yeah, but like I said, by no means a necessary upgrade. The only reason I did the upgrade is because I was very fortunate enough to get a little bonus at work.
Yeah,
so
bonus.
I wouldn't have bought it otherwise, put it that way.
Is there any sort of buyer's remorse in having invested the money in it? You're happy with your purchase, basically?
I wouldn't. Unlike you, Tim, my the line I need to cross, or the hurdle I need to jump to use the word investment, is different to you. I think to you, investment means bought, because it makes you feel like you've been less a bit less free, a bit less devil may care about your use of money. Is it as a purchase? I don't have buyer's remorse. I mean, obviously, it's again, the only reason I felt unable to treat myself to the upgrade was because I was very fortunate enough to get a bit of a bit of extra thickness in my paycheck. Otherwise, I would have been perfectly happy continuing with my LCD.
My other question is, did you tell your missus that you bought a new one, or just hope that she didn't notice the difference?
No, I did tell her.
Or did you tell her how much it cost this time?
Yes, and then no to that second question. I coached it with man mass. I said, well, I'm probably going to sell it. And by the time you do that, it didn't really cost that much money once you look at the difference. There's an upgrade. Right. Although, like I said to Common, because of the timing of it, I ended up, I bought it whilst waiting at a bus stop in Reykjavik in Iceland.
Yes. Yeah.
And turns out 5G in Iceland's wicked. Oh, Iceland's so good. Hasn't exploded, so that
apart from the COVID
good.
And the volcanoes.
The COVID can do one. That was not fun. So I think that is probably all we have done played, and I probably ought to start devoting some time to my pile of shame. So I actually have more than 2 games to talk about for my games of the year, because otherwise my best games and worst games and everything in between is just going to be the same games again and again and again.
I was really hoping to find a cheap copy of either Baldur's Gate 3 or RoboCop.
Baldur's Gate, dude, is never coming down in price. That is never coming down in price.
They seem to be selling that way, man. But I was really hoping to find a cheap one, either digitally or physically, in the Black Friday sales, and I didn't find a cheap one of any of them. And I was like, but I
they're too good to put on sale, dude.
I kind of feel that I should play both of those games before I might pick up end of year decisions and stuff, basically. Yeah.
I'm probably going to pick up Baldur's Gate. I hear it's actually quite a good experience on the Steam Deck, so.
Yeah.
Up Steam Deck going if you want one, mate. Just saying. I do you nice price. I
might have to be overly sensible at the moment, but yeah.
Invest. Yes, think of it as an
invested in a new phone, so,
Invested. I love the way that you just overused the word invested. I wouldn't put it past you to say that you'd invested in a bag of crisps at lunchtime.
Well, I mean, digested more than invested.
Yeah, but, this is true. Yeah. So what was I going to say? So, yes, I think that's pretty much all we have played, because, it's been the festive period has been keeping us busy, and so we probably ought to just kind of touch on topics in the news. And there's been This little game,
small
little game called what's it now? Gran Turismo? No, GTA 6. Grand Blue, GTA 6. GTA 6 has finally released. The trailer's finally released. Leaked. / rushed out the door. / one of the producers' kids for internet points posted some pictures of it on TikTok.
Oh,
all a bit of a mess, really, wasn't it?
How long do you think he's getting grounded for?
Forever. He's gonna
until
stop
the
being
game
grounded.
comes out, basically. You're grounded
exactly.
until 2025.
Well, first off, I will be knowing these GTA releases. I will be. I would actually. I'm tempted to kind of say, look, I would put. I don't bet, but if I were betting for a comedy bet, I would say 2026 is when it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to hit 2025.
I don't know on that one because they very clearly said 2025. I think judging by how they do things and how they've done things in the past, they have, announced dates and then sort of had to put them back because of delays and because of things. I think them just giving the 2025 is giving them a bit of breathing room, and they're probably aiming for the earlier part of the year or April, summer, I would say possibly.
Ideally in fiscal 24.
But giving themselves the wiggle room of, and we've got the rest of the year if we need to delay it. But like you said, I wouldn't be entirely surprised if this did get delayed out of 2025. But I don't know. I think they've given themselves enough time that they've and been nebulous enough just by saying 2025. Also, I think it was a good idea to temper people's expectations because otherwise the rumor mill would be flying around when this is coming. Also, I feel sorry for anyone that's releasing a game now in 2025 because everyone's going to want to run out of the way of Grand Theft Auto 6. So you might see quite a few games trying to make sure that they get out in 2024, which could be good for us. Like, it could be bad. I don't know. But
it blows my mind, though, that GTA 5 was released in September 2013, and I'm kind of, I'm kind of surprised that they may as well go for the 15th anniversary now, right? That's what I'm thinking. They missed the 10th anniversary of it,
possibly, but
2028. Let's go.
No, but see, if the maths is correct, even if it does come out in 2025, doesn't get delayed till 2026, if my maths is correct, then if this has got the same 10-year lifespan as the previous game, then people could still be playing this game up until the world ends. Like, what I mean?
But Tim, all right, so who's told you the world's ending? Again?
I mean, I don't know if you've seen the state of the planet lately, Dan.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty.
The global warming things.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know a hard date had been put on it. I know we are
very long left.
To be fair, I know we're kind of circling the toilet bowl of hellfire.
Don't want to worry.
I didn't know a hard date had been put on it. So who's told you 2036? Who's told you 2036?
Well, apparently, I can't remember. It was someone came out with the data that the civilization will collapse by 2040, and we are ahead of schedule of where they thought we were, apparently.
God, well, look at us overachieving once again.
Just going down that route. There's a few things between now and 2025 that could go very, very wrong. That's all I'm saying, Dan. I don't know if you've seen this guy Trump over in America.
He's great, love him. No, sir, joking. Head. By the way, I am bloody joking there.
Literally just said today that he's only
He'll only
plans
be a dictator
to be
for the first day.
For one day.
Oh, good.
I'm not sure you know how that word works, but okay.
Absolute. Yeah, that man is arse water of the highest flavour. I'm hoping, though, back on topic, because GTA 6 is based in Vice City, which is kind of like a pastiche of Florida, essentially. All I'm saying is there is a resort in Florida called Mar-a-Lago, and I'm just genuinely hoping that there is some really, really on point mockery of Trump. Because one of the things that GTA, Bar-a-Glago. I don't know what they're going to call it.
But yeah,
the GTA does have a habit of, you know, holding a mirror up to culture.
Yes.
In a somewhat subversive way. I hope that they just take the lovely easy pitch that's being thrown at them and just knock it out the park with that one.
But I do think there's and we were discussing this last night with some people, I do think there's a very real chance that there will be a level set in whatever they call Mar-a-Lago where you have to break in to steal back like the
classified
documents that have been put in that building. I think that's almost nailed on. Like, I'll be very surprised if that doesn't happen. Also, with it being set in Florida, which we haven't necessarily come out and said, but it's set in the equivalent of Florida in the game world.
Yep.
And so like Vice City very much being Miami basically, and very much kind of taking a leaf from that. But yeah, like it's going to be interesting if because it does seem like we've seen like there's going to be settings that are very much realistic to Florida. So there's the swamps, and you saw a load of flamingos, saw a load of gators,
alligators,
walking
gators
into
in swimming pools,
and in shops, walking into shops, which is, you know, very much taken out of Florida. But yeah, I'll be interested to see if there is a Disneyland equivalent. That will be something that I think is. I don't know.
Their lawyers might
seen...
encourage them to stay well away from that.
Yes,
I have a feeling.
Quite possibly, but that's why I'd be surprised if there isn't a large theme park, even if it completely stays away from Disneyland, and if they have a Ron DeSantis character that ends up arguing with the theme park and stuff like that. I can see them going at, you know, the political side of it.
I mean,
they don't particularly go after the Disney side.
There is a Florida-based gold mine of comedy potential here. That's all we're going to say. You know, everyone is entitled to their own political views, but if you support Trump, you're wrong. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah. But there was quite a lot of evidence of what they're aiming for in, you know, the way they'll be taking on all the kind of Florida memes and sort of going with that. Quite a lot of evidence for that in the trailer, basically. So I can see them having a really good time with that.
Yeah, and I mean, the kind of details were a little scant. I mean, I think the general setup is kind of, I think, as was rumoured, you're kind of playing as kind of both halves of almost like a Bonnie and Clyde couple.
Yeah.
Although it looks like the main character, you never quite know with GTA whether to say protagonist or antagonist that you're playing. Do you know what I mean? The main character is Lucia. So it's first time a female main character, I believe, for GTA. Which is good.
As you said, they kind of frame the trailer as from her perspective to start with, at least, and so that kind of sets up that is the case. I would be very surprised if it isn't, as you said, the dual kind of thing. It's weird that I don't think they could venture onwards from having the three main characters in the previous game and being able to bounce around there, because you can't really. I don't think there's much value in going up from there in terms of going to 4 characters or more, or, you know, build your own characters or anything like that. But I think there is some area to explore where it's a couple and you're playing each side of the couple and having different kind of aspects there. I wonder if they'll do
for the first time you can genuinely be always wrong.
Yeah, but I do wonder if they're gonna do it how they did the last game and how like Spider-Man 2 did recently, where you can on the fly jump between the two different characters, and whether if you arrive at location you need to be the other character, you can just swap on the fly. I imagine. I really liked it as a mechanic. Yeah.
I thought it was a great mechanic. Again, interesting to see how they do that. So I think the only other stuff to say is that it's, like we said, 2025. Apparently, it's only going to be current gen consoles on launch. PC is not at launch is what has
Yeah,
been
but
what has been confirmed.
That's always the way they do things, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the way they did. It's the way they did GTA 5 as well. I mean, I think it's obviously a bit more of a job to optimize for the various hardware you might encounter in the PC world, and I think lowest common denominator of consoles in this respect is probably the right one to make. It's probably the right call to make. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I was quite, even though I don't think we are any longer in new gen or what is now current gen kind of uplifts being knock you out your seat. Oh my god, that's massive in terms of upgrades to visuals and stuff. I was actually quite impressed with GTA. I think one of the challenges has always been with previous GTA games is obviously they want you to feel you're in this bustling city. But sometimes it could feel a little bit empty because there's only so many characters. One of the things I was really impressed by was like, this sounds really weird to be the thing to be impressed by in a GTA trailer, but like the crowd density and just the feeling of it actually being an alive world, to me was quite impressive. I'd be interested to see how that compares to the version that's launched. Though. Yeah,
but also I think the kind of individualism of not just the people, but also the objects like cars and other things in the environment, where everything felt like that was the one example of the thing you could see in that shot type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, and I do think that's something that's going to be, as you said, interesting to see how that comes out. But like, I don't think it's too much of a surprise to say, but I do think this is on track to be one of the biggest games of all time, and that's generally the way GTAs go. But also, I think this is going to be, and you were talking about the generational leap and stuff like that. But I think this has the tendency to be massively impressive, not just because it has a massive budget to put to this. And has a budget that pretty much outstrips any of its competitors that it can spend on this to then have the results, as we said, for 10 years going forward of sales. But not forgetting that the previous Grand Theft Auto 5 we had on previous consoles, but wasn't made for previous consoles. It was made for the consoles before that. So in terms of building a game from the ground up, this is a multi-generational leap from the previous game. And obviously 10 years later, than the first game design, but 2 console generations later as well. So I do think this has the scope for really being quite impressive. And I think this trailer did a really good job of building hype while also setting expectations for the release date and things like that. But it still looks, it's not going for like hyper realism, it's not going for photorealistic, but it does looks like a stylized kind of take on the world. But I do think it looks really graphically impressive, and I don't know how much ray tracing and stuff they'll cram into everything, but it does look like there were good reflections on things. The paint on the cars looked very impressive, and there was a number of things that you could tell. It's difficult to tell in trailers because you don't know how much of it was polished up as a vertical slice just to show off what they're aiming for.
How gussied up it was, we don't know.
Yes, but they don't tend to do the bait and switch with that. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they took a lot of this from, actual in-engine footage of stuff that they've done already and stuff that they got planned out. And that they're just taking the time that they have between now and 2025 to put all the bells and whistles together, to polish it up and to make it, really sing. But I thought this did a good job of, as I said, setting expectations while also starting to build hype for something that could well be the biggest game of all time, basically. So
yeah. Well, I mean,
look forward to
even kind of broke through into BBC News and mainstream news outlets.
Yes,
and some kind of ridiculous amount of views within 70 million views of the trailer.
Yes, and it's broken records for that as well. Yeah.
So there we go. So that's it. Grand Theft Auto 6, unsurprisingly confirmed at some point, and will release at some point in the future. Other bits of news this week. Sadly, it's a bit another week, another round of layoffs. Codemasters, who are a long time group of coders and a one-time publisher from way back when. Now most probably known for their racing games that they put together, specifically the WRC and also F1, the F1. Well, the official F1 series of games. So they recently got F1 23 and EA Sports WRC World Rally Championship out of the door, but were then promptly congratulated with some layoffs by the sound of it. No real details.
Nice one, EA.
No real details on the number of staff involved. And unsurprisingly, there's kind of really the only comment is the usual corporate nonsense, which is, business is constantly changing as we strive to deliver amazing games and services to keep our players engaged, connected, and inspired. And at times it means we have to make organizational changes and align our teams and resources to meet evolving business needs and priorities. I am a business person. See you soon. Goodbye.
I do think it's a bit of a problem. Like, this was the worry when EA took over Codemasters, that they would do exactly this. I don't necessarily think that all necessarily the blame entirely goes to EA, because this is happening across the board at the moment. But it does seem like it's a really weird time where it's a really good time to be a gamer, but it's not a very good time to be a game developer. And that seems to not gel well alongside each other, basically. But I also think it's a weird time for Codemasters at the moment. They are going through a transitionary period where they've seemed to have picked up the World Rally license, but they're kind of drifting away from their Colin McRae.
See what you did there? Very good. Drifting away, rallying, very good.
Drifting away from Colin McRae. That was actually non-deliberate. But I kind of think that makes sense. Yeah, I kind of think that makes sense.
You'll be dropping Ken Block's name next, mate.
I do think that kind of makes sense when Colin McRae is possibly not as relevant as he used to be. Like, because he hasn't been around for, as much.
By virtue of being a bit dead.
I wasn't necessarily going with that, but he hasn't been rallying either way for quite some time. There are more recent rally drivers. There's probably not as big a name in the UK as him, because most of the kind of recent rally drivers have been generally Finnish.
A bit more alive.
And a bit more alive. But I actually think it got to the point where the Colin McRae name meant more in video games than it did in modern day rallying kind of thing.
Well, so a bit like in the same way that Madden meant more than the guy who obviously who's a commentator, not someone actively playing the sport. But
that's still a name that still carries some weight in American football circles, whereas I'm not sure that Colin McRae does as much in modern day rallying kind of thing. But yeah, as I said, I just think it's an odd time for them. They had a few misses before that as well, with games not quite hitting as much as they like, which I think partially led to EA taking them over as well. But yeah, you don't like to see it. Codemasters is a company and a group of developers that I've really appreciated that output for many, many years now. And it's one that I feel a bit protective over. So EA being nasty to them kind of, sets off alarm bells. But hopefully this streamlines them and puts them in a good position for the future, but we'll see.
Absolutely. What other news has been going on? Well, there's been shenanigans. Tim, there has been shenanigans. I know this is something you love to rant about. I mean, many things you love to rant about, but this is something that I know is something you do particularly love to rant about, which is actually technically how we don't really own much anymore, really. All we do is buy permission to look at stuff, but that is a permission that can be taken away. So way back when Sony was kind of selling video content on the PlayStation Store, a lot of Discovery shows like Mythbusters, for example, I believe is one of them. Kind of very much advertised to people as, hey, you are buying this show, not you are renting this show. You are buying this show. Turns out that really you didn't buy it so much. You kind of bought, like we said, the right to view it.
You bought a license.
And that right to view can be taken away from you. Exactly. So it's just announced very briefly on PlayStation's website that it planned to remove hundreds of Discovery films from users' libraries. Now, that doesn't matter if you rented it. Again, these are people who thought they had bought this content.
Yeah.
It is now being removed from them. And that is a result of, I think the Discovery stuff is ultimately owned by Warner Brothers or was acquired by Warner Brothers. And they weren't happy to really continue honoring that. And unsurprisingly, big concern about what this means about ownership of digital media. And, not only, I mean, obviously this is video content, but people are thinking, well, what does this mean to video games down the line? What does this mean for video game preservation? And, what about the movies I apparently own? So it is, I think, a worrying precedent. But unfortunately, I think we're going to see a bit more of this kind of stuff.
But yeah, this is something that we've spoken about before, more in video games than video content. But there is a reason why I don't trust anyone to buy digital video content off them. Like I bought a few things off like Apple TV back in the day when I used to use that a little bit more, but I haven't really I've got streaming services and all those type of things, and you kind of expect that things go on and off those services, and people have got used to that being the model. I do think that is a more honest way of doing things with this type of content these days, because of the nature of licenses and losing licenses and selling things to other owners means that these type of things can occur. And the way I've expressed it before in video games is you've never bought a video game before. You don't own video games. You own the license to play them.
It's like
for
a bizarro version of
that.
Sounds like a bizarro version of that 90s thing about piracy. You don't own you don't own a video game.
You wouldn't buy a video game. But yeah, like essentially you've never, like you and me and all of our listeners, or the majority of them, unless Activision is listening and Bobby Kotick happens to listen to the show, you've never bought a video game. Like you
No, we have a no
bellend
bellend policy. You know what I mean? No one who's a bellend is allowed to listen.
You own a temporary license. And I saw some people talking on social media about this as, well, maybe time to go back to physical media for games then, if Sony's going to do it. And it's just like, what makes you think that they can't stop you from playing a physical game, a game that you've bought on a disc? These days, you need to buy, like day one that you buy the disc, you put the disc in and you need to download all the patches and everything else to make it work properly anyway.
I mean, it depends if there's an explicit online check. I mean, I think there is still data on that physical medium, but probably you'd have to go back to probably PS2, PS1 to truly say you own a copy of that game.
No, you didn't own a copy then. You own a license that comes on a disc. That's it. Like you don't. Right. It does get trickier when, as you say, there are internet-based consoles, but you've never owned a video game. You never bought a video game. You don't buy a video game. You buy a license to play that video game for a specified period of time. Not even necessarily a specified period of time, but a indefinite period of time. And you usually, like, that license is usually restricted to a particular device as well. And you don't own the right to sell that game to anyone else. That's why secondhand games are a bit weird, and a bit of a grey area, but it's also why, there's a lot of other things that go on. But as I said, wasn't there Deadpool recently where they actually prevented people from playing the game in any form. I think even if you had a physical version of that game, you couldn't update it anymore, and you couldn't actually, like, you could play off the disc, you could play the original base game that came out, but I don't think if you put it into a console and didn't have it online and all that type of stuff. But I think they actually stopped people, and I might be incorrect about this, but I think it was Deadpool where they actually stopped the ability to play the game because you couldn't download patches for it, you couldn't actually update it. And so essentially you couldn't play the same version. You could play a version of the game off the disc, but you couldn't actually play the version of the game that was generally available at release and had received updates and patches to make work properly. And I think it'll be in everything going forward. And it's like you say, it's a big problem for preservation of games. But then you get into sticky areas of like, what happens with like Destiny 2 in 10, 20 years time when all the servers have gone down for that?
Nothing.
You essentially won't be able to play that game. No,
exactly.
It doesn't matter if you own the disc. Like if the servers aren't there on the back end, you won't be able to play that game. And it's not even, you won't be able to play portions of it. Like you won't be able to play the online.
It's straight up, all your character data is remote.
Yeah.
So you would not be able to do that. But anyway, Tim, put that tinfoil hat away because we still have a couple of headlines that we just need to quickly touch on. Starbreeze, them erstwhile developers of the Payday series of games. We might not talk about the third one quite so much. Didn't go down so well.
We tried to play it, but the bureaucracy got us down, man. The lack of server connection was a bigger problem, but yeah.
Exactly. Tim, don't start that rant again. You've already had that rant once today, all right? You've had that rant once. You can't have it a second time. They have announced an officially licensed Dungeons and Dragons game. So almost sounds a bit like kind of a co-op adventure. I'm almost expecting something a bit Vermintide-y, but in a kind of Dungeons and Dragons rather than Warhammer 40k universe. But it'd be interesting to see how much of the Dungeons and Dragons side of things they lean into. I mean, I think obviously the D&D suits itself somewhat more to games like Baldur's Gate, where kind of there is that very rich, everything you do has a consequence, and it's perhaps a bit easier to build into those long-form kind of RPG experiences. But, surprise, surprise, Starbreeze have said, we'll carry our signature cornerstones of cooperative multiplayer, lifetime commitment through a games-as-a-service model. Lifetime commitment, okay. Lifetime commitment for as long as we keep the servers on. Community engagement and a larger-than-life experience. Wow, that's a lot of words to say not very much in terms of specifics.
Were you reckoning this is going to be just Payday magic?
Yeah, pretty much.
Like Wizards and Dragons rob banks, basically. Magic banks.
Yeah, pretty much. Paul Daniels goes on a bit of a bender, is what it's going to be. Him and Debbie McGee, they've gone downtown
Bonnie
Brighton,
and Clyding their way through.
Yeah, absolutely,
absolutely.
That's actually, perhaps that's what GTA 6 is going to turn out to be. That is the crossover that we haven't seen. So yes. So funnily enough, Project Baxter, which is the code name for it, is going to launch on all major platforms in 2026 and will include crossplay. And the game will be produced in Unreal Engine 5.
Hopefully it'll work.
Well, hopefully by then Unreal Engine 5 will be very well established. It is very impressive, but I hear still a bit of a challenge at the moment. So, right, that's your lot. That's I think we kind of run out of time, to be honest with you. Despite us saying it was going to be a quick one, that, of course, means that it isn't. But there are some important things I need to tell you, namely, buy my face. Check out our merch at tpublic.com/store/BRB. There's all kinds of wonderful things you can buy there, from face masks to, yes, baby grows. You can get everything from there and that in between. Mugs with my face on it. Baby grows with my face on it. Face masks, confusingly, with my face on it. There are other things with... There are other things with, we've got some awesome bits of art done by members of the community. So, yeah, do check them out. There's some great T-shirts there. I do have a question for you, though, Tim, since you are the proverbial Alan Sugar behind this merch enterprise. Who gets commission from my face?
Well, I mean,
because
I
our
designed
artists,
it, so
our artists get commissioned. But did I give you permission to use my face?
Yes.
Did I? When?
Yes. I asked you before I did it. Yes.
Did you? Did I say yes?
I mean, I think Carmen sent me the image, but Carmen sent me the image. I made it. I'm the designer. If we
it's my face, Tim.
If we sell any, then it will be worth having this conversation, Dan.
Are you telling me people are buying my face?
No one has bought your face apart from me.
Listeners, it's going to be after I bought my new Steam Deck. It's going to be slim pickings at the Gibbons household this Christmas. If you want me to be able to afford more than a singular Brussels sprout, you need to buy things with my face on it.
If anyone buys Dan's face for Christmas, I'll give him the commission over the Yule time. I'll waive my commission.
It's like an inverse Tiny Tim situation. It's amazing. Anyway, tpublic.com/store/BRB. Tim, Tuesday is Tuesday. Tell us about Tuesday and Tabletop Tuesdays. What's happening this Tuesday, Tim?
Well, each and every Tuesday we do an event called Tabletop Tuesday at the Loading Bar in Stoke, Newington. This Tuesday, and I should give a shout out to last Tuesday as I wasn't here to mention the game, but it was a game called You Can't Say which I am terrible at, as I expected. But I did get to play with John Brady, so that's okay.
Well, he was just telling people about his book.
We do not make a good team, but we still managed to win a game.
I could have told you. Tim, I know. I know.
But still, it was fun. But this week coming up is the second Tuesday of the month, and every second Tuesday of the month at Tabletop Tuesday, we do our social deduction evening. So there is, we'll be playing, most likely, as always, at the moment, we will be playing Blood on the Clock Tower, as that seems to be the most popular one. But also just note, and this may be semi-useless because I'm not entirely sure that Coleman will have this episode out on Friday because of him not being here this evening.
Wow, throw him under the bus, Tim, why don't you? Jeez!
Well, no, it's just the fact I was going to mention there is a Friday event going on for 2 rooms and a boom this week at Loading Bar, but I don't know if you'll hear that in time to that to be particularly relevant, but I'll mention it just in case. But otherwise, come join us on Tuesday for Blood on the Clock Tower. It is a really good fun social deduction game. We can do nice large groups, and if necessary, we can break off into a group of beginners and a group of advanced people, as we've done on a few previous weeks. But come join us for a game of that. That is really good fun. And generally come along to the Loading Bar in Stoke Newington on a Tuesday for our Tabletop Tuesday events. There are more details on the top left-hand corner of bigredbarrel.com, or there will be by the time this podcast comes out, because I haven't done that yet. And you can search for Tabletop Tuesday and join the nearly up to 2,100 members on our Tabletop Tuesday meetup group. Search for Tabletop Tuesday on meetup.com.
Or check out the fun link I put in the video if you're watching this on YouTube below. Ooh. There we go. Look at me, I added a banner. Com's going to be so pleased with me. You can also, if you want to just come and say hello, do drop on by our Discord. There will be a link in the show notes, and if you're watching the video, just go to that link that you see there. We're not popular enough to get our own special URL, so I'm going to try and pronounce it. It's discord.com/invite/mntuhafwa is RL. That's mntuhafwa. Discord.com/invite/mntuhafwa.
Could we make like a tiny URL for that or something?
We could make it. You could, but I kind of quite like mntuhafwa. Is it's quite a satisfying collection of noises to make. Do come along, say hello there. We've got obviously chat for this show, platform specific chat. There's voice rooms if you want to kind of meet up with some buddies and have a little natter as you play a game. You can do that. I often trundle on, try and convince some people to play Destiny with limited degrees of success. But yeah, fun times are to be had over there. And we do our best. Not today because Carmen isn't here, and we don't want to rid him of the fun. We do try and answer some questions. So if you've got a question for the show, do make sure to go and say hello to us there. Other places you can find us on the internet are bigredbarrel.com, twitter.com or x.com/bigredbarrel, facebook.com/bigredbarrel. Frankly, anything with Big Red Barrel after it, apart from YouTube, which is Big Red Barrel TV, for reasons best known to people. Yep. I'm sure there's a great reason, but that's where it lives. Big Red Barrel TV. And if you have enjoyed this show, if you've downloaded it or listened to us on the web, that's awesome. But if you've downloaded it from whatever podcast storefront of your choice, well, not storefront, place where they might show podcasts, do leave us a review. We can find them. We get them delivered to us by goblins of the internet. And Coleman gets very excited by them. We'd love to hear from you. Obviously, 5-star is our favourite flavour, but any constructive thoughts and criticism is, of course, always welcome. So that is pretty much it. We are done for another week. We're probably, I'm hoping, all going to be here next week with a bumper episode of post Video Game Awards stuff. I actually have the day off on Thursday, Tim, next week, so I've got no excuse for not being read up on it. All kinds of excitement abound. Doubt there's some scandal. Perhaps someone getting lamped on stage as they try and steal someone's mic. Who knows?
Hopefully
it could be a rerun of next year. No, hopefully it won't do that again. But all it really remains for us to do is to not only thank you for listening, but to remind you that I have been Dan.
I might have been Tim.
Correct, and there is no chaos anywhere to be seen.
No chaos.
None. No chaos, all
we have
entropy.
Confined the chaos.
We have. So hopefully there'll be some, hopefully there'll be some chaos next week, or Coleman, whatever. Whatever corporeal form chaos wants to take next week. So thank you for listening, and we'll hopefully be here next week. And until next time, dear listeners, toodle bye.
Your ears are quite welcome
for the podcasting goodness that you just heard.
Why not roll on over
to BigRedBarrel.com
for more podcasts,
news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarrel.com.
The one thing I don't like about the OLED is I hate the they've gone for a red motif over a blue one, and they've put a random red power button on top. And
I don't mind it so much.
I like it being black and sleek and looking.
It lets the poor people know I'm better than them.